And now, Knock 2 Studios presents Common Censored.
What's up, everybody? And welcome back to Common Censored. What's up, Threeper Bro? I see you over there. Wendy Wild, Mama Mac TV, Green, the Outlaw, Dog, Sam, Duty. What's going on, you guys hanging out in the chat? Wendy Wild, hope you're having a good day so far. Did I say Wendy twice? I totally did, didn't I? Thanks for being here, all of you censored commoners. I'm Lord Sterling, and this is episode 302. Indeed, we have the Russian General Kirillov assassinated in Moscow by Ukraine. Not good. Meanwhile, 120 retired generals and admirals step up to the plate backing Pete Hegseth for SecDef. Is that no, for I can't remember which position he is. We'll get into that in a minute. We also have Trump. He's going to be filing a restraining order to try to stop Biden from selling the border wall. All that and a lot more as we cover all the crazy clown world clusterfuck chaos that is 2024. Make sure to join us Monday through Friday, 6:45 p.m. ish Eastern time. Use hashtag Common Censored and hashtag Info Infantry. Sorry for the not exact time schedule, but it's just me over here. So I got to put together the stories. I got to put together the graphics for every episode. I got to put together all the links and everything and blast them out on social media. It's just a process. So sorry for the fluctuation in the times we can begin broadcast. That's why it's 6:45 ish. So make sure to hit that notification button so you'll be notified by Rumble the moment we go live, so you can tune in. You can find us on X at Lord Sterling _. Thank you to our new followers over on Rumble. Let's see where we're at today. We have 1,417 followers now on Rumble. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Links to all of the stories, articles, videos, content we discussed today will be posted down in the video description on Rumble and in the replies underneath our X broadcast window. So if you're watching this later and you want to see what we're talking about, skim through the comments on X or skim through the show description on Rumble. You can find all the links for all the sources for everything we talk about. And Mama Mac will be adding timestamps too, so you can jump right to the points in the broadcast where we cover the things that you are interested in. Thanks, Mama Mac. Appreciate all your help. Speaking of Mama Mac, head on over to Alp Llama. Throw Mama Mac some love. AlpLllama.com, your new herbal health guru. Curing people's neuropathy, like our listener Big as Life, with the lion's mane tincture, all kinds of natural remedies to help you guys fix your ailments. So check them out, alpllama.com. You don't want to rely on the petrochemical pharmaceutical industry that wants you sick and dependent. So check out some herbal remedies. They work. That's right, Mama Mac. I'm so blown away by how it helped restore feeling into Big's foot. It's amazing. Lion's mane, just one of the many awesome tinctures available at alpllama.com, clinically proven to regenerate and regrow nerves. They got all kinds of stuff, cool stuff over there. If you want to support the show directly, you can hit up our link tree at Common Censored, where you can find links to all of our merchandise, our affiliate link to Golden Cocoon, EMF clothing and protection, so you guys can wrap your brainium and your cranium in a modern day newfangled tinfoil hat, protect yourself from harmful EMF, etc. Disclaimer: views expressed on Common Censored are only opinions. Assume everything we say is false and research for yourself. We're not giving medical, legal, or financial advice. The only advice we are giving is think for yourself. Question authority. Think for yourself. Question authority. Boom! All right, let's jump into the news. Breaking from Hustle Bitch at Hustle Bitch _ on X. We have a BlackRock drone that's been discovered in New York, allegedly. New York Police Department just found a giant drone in Brooklyn that belongs to a research and product development company called Amagi. Guess who invested in Amagi? None other than BlackRock. It's even worse than you can imagine, says Hustle Bitch. What the hell is that? A 6 propeller spider looking type of drone with all kinds of crazy stuff strapped to it. BlackRock has invested in Amagi, a company that develops ammonia-based energy solutions to decarbonize transportation and other sectors. Now, we need more carbon, so fuck you, BlackRock. Snarl Barky, I see you over there. Sam Duty, yeah, it's all good. I know you guys are just busting my balls about being late. But we start typically within a 15, 20-minute window every day, and then we go for 3 hours, so I think it pretty much works itself out. But you do deserve an explanation. So this drone apparently has been present at the location for over a month and is completely inoperable. BlackRock is not the only notable investor in Amagi. There's also no indication that BlackRock has control over this drone, but they invest in everything. They like getting their grubby little fingers in on everything, so there's probably more to the story there that we will find out eventually. In other related news, Lockheed, according to Ashton Forbes at Just X Ashton, Lockheed just turned on Skynet, and people are too focused on drones to care. Quote, Asterisk AI also delivers end-to-end AI consultative engineering services, including ML ops and generative AI strategy, implementation, training, and scaled model development and deployment that will empower organizations to own and maintain their AI tools and data. I don't see any way this ends well for humanity, Ashton says, reposting Mario Nafal, who writes, Lockheed goes full AI. Meet Asterisk, the defense game changer. Lockheed Martin just launched Asterisk AI, a new subsidiary blending cutting-edge artificial intelligence with U.S. defense tech. Sounds terrifying. Skynet to a T. It's like giving the military a brain upgrade, except not a human brain, which is horrifying. Led by generative AI expert Donna O'Donnell, Asterisk aims to handle sensitive data with care, while handling humans with with no care whatsoever. I don't want automated weapon systems. I don't want our defense tech to have their own brains, so they can target whoever they want. This is sketchy, man. Super sketchy. They'll handle sensitive data with care while eyeing future commercial AI ventures. With Trump's efficiency drive and innovators like Elon Musk in the mix, this could kickstart a defense tech revolution. Hopefully, with Elon involved, it'll go a positive direction. But like anything, technology is a double-edged sword. It can be used for good, it can be used for bad. A hammer can be used to create or destroy. A gun can be used to defend or to kill. So I guess we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with this. But it's looking a little sketchy, guys. A little bit sketchy. We also have an interesting wick at DOITQ plus on X. So this post was real? Holy fuck. The radiation sniffing false flag predicted in 2022. This post on ZZZ-chan saying that the next false flag will be centered on the premise of malicious interdiction of nuclear source materials. Just like that container showing up in New Jersey, empty and damaged. It will not involve a nuclear device or nuclear detonation, but rather a radiological threat. Nuclear source materials will be deliberately leaked to target areas to inflict severe injuries through radiation exposure. The real number of casualties as a result of these attacks will remain very low. The purpose is to create a new method of restricting freedom of movement and new policies that will enable the government to continue its expansion of power, as we covered with that legislation that they're trying to push. Almost seems like a problem reaction solution paradigm where they have a solution in mind, they launch a problem, wait for the public to freak out with their reaction, and then drop the solution, which is that legislation. The media will display images of attack survivors who have burns and lesions across their skin, videos depicting overwhelmed triage centers with victims vomiting or otherwise unresponsive will be shared on social media. The threat of radiation exposure, an invisible enemy, will be used as the primary vector. An application modeled after COVID contact tracing will be installed on every mobile device that uses iOS or Android. This application will serve to notify the user about potential hazardous exposure and recommend actions they should take, which include voluntary exposure testing. Additionally, cellular carriers will roll out automated SMS alerts that have similar functionality. This application will interface directly with the UICC on mobile devices. If the user does not have this application installed, network connectivity will be prohibited. That would be fucking insane. Insane. The new policy will grant government agencies further access to metadata and geolocation on every platform. Included in these policies will be backdoor legislation that bans the use of end-to-end encryption. This legislation will be identical in nature to the recently introduced S.302 Earn It Act. This is from 2022 again, but just interesting. This is maybe something to pay attention for, this whole scenario. These attacks will be localized to a specific region. Triage centers will be set up in affected areas, though through the deployment of the National Guard and coordinating members such as FEMA, these triage centers will see moderate traffic. The narrative will continue longer than any possible threat. Just kind of like how they're still extending the COOF emergency in December 2024. Insane. Despite offering no protection or even relevancy against a radiological threat, you will see another wave of people wearing cotton surgical masks. And not just the target areas, but the entire United States. There will be severe disruptions to the internet through the use of addition rather than negation. Alternative sources of information will become overwhelmed with content generated by convolutional neural networks that support the narrative or uses a carefully crafted opposition, so AI, fighting real information with disinformation. Platforms that are incompatible with this system will be suppressed entirely on this infrastructure level. There will be organic service disruptions as a result of excess traffic. Video will surface showing these triage centers empty with the personnel staffing them idle. This will threaten the narrative. The control of information is required for the campaign to be successful. The perpetrator will not be an Islamic-affiliated group or evil incel domestic terrorist. It will have no relevancy to the ongoing Ukraine conflict, but the blame will fall on all these groups. The fog of war will surround information relating to the origin, and this will be intentional. The real attacks will be psychological. Fear will be exploited, just like with the manufactured response to the COOF situation that we can't really talk about on YouTube. Interesting. NNSA working with federal, state, and local partners to hold major radiological incident exercise in Austin, May 16th to 20th, 2022. So who knows, man? Who knows? Bulldozer 74. Hope you're having a good day, brother. Hope your mom is doing well. Damn. So very interesting. Very interesting. Could be, man. We do have the story about the missing nuclear material in New Jersey. Meanwhile, the rumors about dirty bombs and everything like that. Mike Adams did a little deep dive and found some more information about the history of this situation, saying he dug up some additional research on the drone mystery and, to his surprise, discovered that these exotic drones have been flying over U.S. military nuclear assets for at least the last 8 years. There are reports from 2016 describing the same thing being observed today. Apparently, these exotic drones are invisible to radar. They can also absorb visible light, sort of cloaking themselves. These are different from the U.S. military drones flying around, which are probably trying to document or shoot down one of these, quote, exotech drones, exotic technology drones. It seems to me there are at least 2 different types of drones flying around now. Mama Mac, that lines up perfectly with that Cliff High Webbot prediction that there would be multiple types of UFOs. And the exotic tech drones possess the ability to fly at Mach 0.75, around 560 miles per hour, at altitudes up to 39,000 feet. That's why they can outrun helicopters and most airplanes. Source: The War Zone. Numerous FAA reports also confirm these observations filed by military pilots in various military training areas in Arizona. We also have credible reports from F-35 pilots of these drones exhibiting swarm behavior. He continues, concluding, I cover all this in today's hard-hitting Bright Eon podcast news episode, which will be posted on X as well. So if you're interested in the full take on that, check out brighteon.com and find Mike Adams' podcast talking about all this stuff. Bill, I'm trying to get that link to work. Give me 1 sec so I can scope it out. Let's see what you got over here. The site can't be reached. Give me a second to try to figure that out. For the meantime, let's jump over to the next topic. Chase Geyser interviewing a nuclear weapons whistleblower, revealing that drones are not searching for dirty bombs, saying the deep state is up to something even more diabolical. Thomas B. Sauer is the dude in question. Let's check out some of his testimony.
There had been reports of a Soviet-era Ukrainian nuclear weapon that had gone missing, and maybe these drones are being used to detect radiation. I saw your comment saying basically, look, there's other ways that they can detect radiation without flying drones all over the place.
So I don't believe that that's the case. Now, that doesn't mean I know the answer as to
Got it,
what's
Bill.
going
Thanks.
on. But so what I did in my previous life, so to speak, I was a Navy explosive ordnance disposal officer. I was attached to a special operations task force, which was actually based out of Japan. We were the regional, what was called the Commanders in Extremis Force, the CIF. Nowadays, I think they call it the CRIF, this Crisis Response Force. And it was meant to be a quick reaction in theater in the Pacific region. Every region has one assigned to it. And they were there for counterterrorism. So this was for like major events. So this is like a major hostage situation or some sort of a terrorist act. And then if you think about it, what is the biggest terrorist threat out there? Right. And really, if you think about it, the biggest terrorist threat would be a WMD brought into either, one of our friends' countries, whether Europe, Australia, Japan, or into the United States, God forbid. The other aspect of that is that people said, oh, well, it was a nuclear weapon, it was pulled out of Ukraine. Now, the thing is after the fall of the Soviet Union, one of the first things that the United States was concerned about was that there were tons of nuclear weapons in Ukraine. And when Ukraine was becoming an independent country, we had to make a deal. And this was back in 1990, 1991. We made a deal with the Russians and the Ukrainians saying like, hey, Russia, you take your nukes out, Ukraine will protect you, so to speak. Right. And it was like part of a deal. Because Ukraine was itself as a country was in no position then, they sure as hell aren't now, to possess nuclear weapons. We don't need that.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I am Chase Geyser, your host for the remainder of the show until the great Owen Schroyer takes over with the War Room at 3 p.m. Central Time until 6 p.m. Central Time. We are joined right now by
Craig.
Tom Sauer, known on X as Thomas B. Sauer, multifaceted individual with a diverse background, primarily centered around military service, entrepreneurship, and health services, and public commentary. Tom, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on with your time on such short notice.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chase. Really appreciate it. And pretty impressed you were able to figure out all that stuff about me so easily.
It was Grok, man. It was Grok. I just put in your handle on Grok and I said, tell me about this guy. And they spit it all out.
That's great.
Yes, welcome back.
So the reason I wanted to have you on is because I saw Joe Rogan post the 9-minute clip of this CEO of a drone contracting company, a military contractor. And it was a 9-minute clip of him saying that there had been reports of a Soviet-era Ukrainian nuclear weapon that had gone missing, and maybe these drones are being used to detect radiation. I saw your comment.
Thanks, Outlaw
saying
Dogs.
basically, look, there's other ways that they can detect radiation without flying drones all over the place. And so because of your background and because of the great work that you do that I want to also show a light on, I wanted to ask you or get your insight, your intel, your credible expertise for the sake of the audience and myself on why or what you think about the argument around this is a radiation detecting.
Real quick, make sure to check out The Outlaw Dogs on Rumble. We did an interview together a few weeks ago that you guys will enjoy. The Outlaw Dogs interview with an outlaw, episode 1. Thanks, Cheryl, for having me. Appreciate you.
So I don't believe that that's the case. Now, that doesn't mean I know the answer as to what's going on. But so what I did in my previous life, so to speak, I was a Navy Explosive Ordnance Disposal Officer. I was attached to a Special Operations Task Force, which was actually based out of Japan. We were the regional, what was called the Commanders in Extremis Force, the CIF. Nowadays, I think they call it the CRIF, the Crisis Response Force, and is meant to be a...
Sorry for the repeating dialogue here. They take an important clip and usually put it at the beginning of the interview, then it kind of repeats.
In theater, in the Pacific region, every region has one assigned to it, and they were there for counterterrorism. So this was for like major events. So this is like a major hostage situation, or some sort of a terrorist act. And then if you think about it, what is the biggest terrorist threat out there, right? And really, if you think about it, the biggest terrorist threat would be a WMD. Brought into either one of our friends' countries, whether Europe, Australia, Japan, or into the United States, God forbid. So, and we were a supporting element of JSOC, right? Joint Special Operations Command, right? And so, you can, without giving anything away too much, you could probably read on the internet about what Joint Special Operations Command does, and you would probably find something about how it's the premier counterterrorism force. And that includes, and Joint Special Operations Command owns SEAL Team 6, Delta Force, a couple other units that you might not have heard of, right? And then also below, those are like considered the Tier 1 units. The unit I was attached to was what's colloquially referred to as a Tier 2 unit, right? We kind of make the joke that, my unit, what we did, we were, discount Delta Force, diet dev crew, right? But we were actually a very capable unit. And so we were able to do a lot, but I went through a ton of training as an EOD officer, right? We still know how to shoot, jump, dive, do all the cool guy things, right? But most of our training is focused on defeating terrorist explosive threats. And what is the biggest terrorist threat would be a loose WMD, particularly a nuclear device.
That would be a big threat.
And, so, and just for the sake of myself and the audience, how many unaccounted for nuclear weapons are there estimated to be?
Well, there were like 80 from the end of the Cold War, and then there were like 11 American broken arrows. Broken arrow refers to a nuclear warhead that is irretrievably lost. There was one that was dropped from a plane over Savannah, Georgia, that's stuck down in the mud, still active. 5 out of the 6 fail-safes broke and almost detonated. It could blow any minute. I think it's Savannah. There's a few other crazy stories about that. We played an episode, or a seg from an episode of an old TV show, cataloging and chronicling the American broken arrows, these missing American nukes, but there's a whole bunch of European missing nukes, way more.
You'd be surprised how few.
Okay.
Because, believe it or not, and what's one thing I learned.
But there are some.
I'm not really sure, to be honest, but it's like I actually was surprised to learn that that was very good accountability without getting into.
I mean, I can't even find my keys, so I can't imagine what happened after the Soviet Union collapsed.
Right. But one of the things I learned that was really interesting was that there are.
Never saw that, but yes, it is a broken arrow.
Got into this unit and I got the full read-in, right, to the programs that I was involved in. And I was actually very pleasantly surprised to learn that there are very large, well-funded, well-organized organizations that are dedicated almost entirely to preventing this sort of a thing. So I think you showed a picture there of when Carl Brashear pulled lost nuclear weapon, I think it was off the coast of Spain a long time ago. I believe that, yeah. So one thing that's interesting, yeah, I think that's what that is right there. It's where Carl Brashear lost his leg, I believe, if that's the case, in Palomare's weapon, yeah. Carl Brashear from the movie Men of Honor, right? The Cuba Gooding played, yeah, he's a real guy. So I was actually pretty surprised by a lot of this, and we've got a ton of capability now, and we've got and I learned this my time at Los Alamos National Lab, which is where, that's where nuclear weapons came from, right? And where they were first tested. And the lab there today does a lot of work almost entirely around nuclear weapons. So I got to see like the plutonium production facility. Like there is a place where we actually manufacture the pits, the cores, the plutonium. Got to hold plutonium in my hand. It was wild. I mean, it really was very impressive.
That's nuts.
So, and because of that, that's all owned by the Department of Energy. So you have to get a separate clearance called a Q clearance, right? So you can have access to what's called CNWIDI, Critical Nuclear Weapons Design Information, right? So like we learned a lot about how nuclear weapons actually function and work. And also in the event of let's say a bad guy's trying to sneak one into the country, about how to determine, one, like confirm or deny, in other words, hey, is this actually a nuclear weapon? And if it is, let's say it's something homemade, right? For example, there was a Pakistani scientist named A.Q. Khan who sold blueprints, like plans. Here's how you could, DIY nuclear weapon.
Right.
And, somebody tried something like that, right? And but we would be able to confirm or deny whether or not it actually was a nuclear weapon. And so then, and if it would actually produce a nuclear yield. So then, and then we end up talking to folks at like Department of Energy, Joint Special Operations Command, White House. Like we do these exercises. Like I spent a lot of time in Australia, New Zealand, practicing with those partner countries, right? If somebody tried to sneak a nuke into Australia or into New Zealand, let's say. Because not all developed countries have the same capabilities that we have, right? So we train them, help them out. So that's where I learned that, whoa, there's some really advanced ways to detect them. And we have them in the States too. And a lot of them is like seen and unseen. For example, coming into the ports, almost all of our ports have radiation monitors. Here, I'll give you a fun example.
Is there any way to mask it though? Can you surround a nuclear weapon in lead or something like that?
You can, and actually that's also one of the tougher parts where if it's an actual nuclear warhead, it is, they are not, as we would say, hot, as radioactive as like a radiological dispersal device, AKA a dirty bomb, right? So because the purpose of an RDD, we call it an RDD, a dirty bomb, is simply to spread dangerous radioactive material all over the place. And it can, if it was done correctly, it can make an area uninhabitable for decades, centuries.
Sure, especially if it hits the water supply, things like that.
All sorts of stuff, right? And so nuclear weapons are an actual, what we refer to as an IND, an improvised nuclear device, which would be either a state-made, made by the Russians or us or one of our other countries that was stolen. The warhead would get stolen and then would get rigged to explode as an IED, an IND, or if it was a DIY one. So the thing is, though, is that we focus. Now, I can tell you that right now, and this is like without me giving up anything too classified or anything like that. Sorry, I can't. I just don't want to get in trouble.
I understand.
So, yeah, is we focus not so much on, we focus a lot on stuff at the homeland, but we really push it out, as in what we refer to as upstream defeat, right? As in, we are over there, we are in other countries, we're watching the sea lanes, if anything were to come in on a container ship or something like that. But I'll give you a fun example of here in the States, one of the ways that we do this, right? If you ever been on a major interstate highway, especially if you're near a port city like Baltimore or Jacksonville, Florida is a good example, where as soon as I leave, I'm going north from Jacksonville up 95, and for some reason I see all this road construction, but there's no actual construction, and there'd be nothing but orange barrels just funneling all traffic into one lane, and it's just barrels and barrels and barrels, but you don't see any backhoes or bulldozers or people working or anything like that. It's just holding up traffic. Well, I'm just saying you could fit radiation monitors inside those barrels. Multiple ones.
So you create a bottleneck and you can scan every vehicle.
So these drones searching for radiation may not be necessary. They would be able to detect it from unseen means all over the place. They probably have satellites scanning the entire country too that can search for it, like we see with the radiation map that we were looking at yesterday.
And if a truck goes by, it'll ping, 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 ping. It'll let folks know. But for example, though, we actually do spend a lot of time on again, upstream defeat. So instead, we're overseas watching everything, right? Because
so it's like proactive. You're trying to find the device.
And I've been trying to find this video about the broken arrows that I've played on the show before. Best kept military secrets, broken arrows. But it's gone from YouTube entirely at this point, and I can't find it anywhere else at the moment.
Before it even makes it here.
Because exactly, right? And keeping track of them. So there is an entire organization called DTRA, the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, right? DTRA. And they partner with Department of Energy, which, by the way, guys,
they
I'm
would
not sure
know
if
if a nuke got brought
when
here.
People talk about DOE,
If it happens, they allowed
Department of
it.
Energy, like the actual infrastructure of producing electricity and energy and sending it out into the country, that is an afterthought, right? Like the real purpose of DOE, Department of Energy, is nuclear weapons. That is, I mean, it is, the Department of Energy is the direct descendant of the Manhattan Project, right? I mean, and that's not anything secret. That's just, if you look it up, right? So DOE exists for nuclear weapons. The power grid is very secondary. It's an afterthought. So that's why DOE owns most of the national labs, right, where we make everything. It's a completely different entity. And so DITRA works with DOE and DOD, right, to basically keep track of where any potential weapon is. And I got a lot of interesting briefs and stuff that I can't really talk about, obviously. I got really good briefs from, the scientists at DOE at Los Alamos and Sandia National Labs. And I was actually, to be completely honest, and I'm not just saying this like somebody can call me something like,
come on, we're glitching out.
deep state hack or something, and I'm not at all. I mean, I've got plenty of criticism of the government. Trust me.
Sure.
If I was a deep state hack, I wouldn't be on the show. But say that I was actually pretty impressed by the capabilities and the accountability that we have on things. We keep a really tight lock. But it's all very. There's a lot of things that you can see, but there's even more things that you can't see that are not obvious. So when we talk about these drones flying overhead,
Hoot, hello. Damn, sorry for the glitching. It seems like anytime I click on something else, it starts glitching out for
I don't
some
have
reason.
the answer to say exactly what it is. My best guess,
Except for that time, I didn't click anything. Shit.
it's a combination of probably some government competence. If a lot of these a lot of them are probably just civilian aircraft that people don't look up very often, and then they see something, and hey, it could be a helicopter, it could be a small plane. They don't know what it is, but maybe there are some that we don't know what that is either. And why would they have flashing navigation lights, right? Why do they operate certain times at night? And the thing is also they would be followed by folks on the ground searching as well, and they can do that pretty discreetly. We learned to do that. You can actually search for things really. I mean, we had pretty cool, man portable radiation monitors that would just fit in a backpack. And I had a little display here, and we would just walk around. And if something we popped up, it would start getting a ping. And then we trained this all the time. There was this really cool setup that they had training out at Sandia National Lab, which is at Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico, where they actually set up an entire mock-up of a port facility. It's out in the desert, but with a giant port facility with giant containers, just like container ships coming in. And they had a mock-up nuclear weapon hidden in there, and we had to find it. And we had to get very creative in finding it and then accessing that container and then defeating that nuclear weapon without getting ourselves killed. It was a really fun.
Wow.
I mean, I'll be honest. It was just one of those very detailed problem solving with dire physical consequences. But obviously I can tell you that nobody that I know, and we never did, actually have to do our jobs for real, because we all knew that we could probably die.
Yeah, I understand. And so much of what you said is absolutely fascinating to me. I'm learning so much, and I've written down a couple of questions here. The first thing that I want to ask you is, I don't know anything about nuclear weaponry. I don't know anything about nuclear energy. My education on the matter basically can be reduced to the Chernobyl series on HBO, right? And so,
and I just FYI, the best kept military secrets video about broken arrows no longer exists on YouTube, but it is inside of Common Censored episode 40 from December 5th, 2023. So you can find that full video in the old Common Censored episode if you want more information about missing nukes. Pretty crazy stuff.
Given that the Soviet Union collapsed many decades ago,
yeah,
and maybe some of these weapons disappeared, maybe they didn't, maybe they were allocated to allies and it was just under wraps, whatever. What is the maintenance for something like this? Because when I look at leaving weapons behind in Afghanistan, for example, there's a lot of equipment that we left behind when Joe Biden pulled us out that there's no infrastructure there for the locals or the natives to really maintain it properly. So what happens if that helicopter breaks down? Are you going to take it to the mechanic? Right. So I imagine that there's some degree of maintenance, maybe not. Please tell me that's required to keep a nuclear warhead from Soviet era Russia functional over the course of several decades. Is that true?
That's absolutely correct. And even with our own weapons, they have to go in, they have regularly scheduled maintenance. So my very first job in the military, coincidentally, before I was a Navy officer, I was actually an enlisted Marine. And I worked my first job in the Marine Corps. This was pre 9/11. So I was 18, 19 years old. As a 19, 20 years old, I worked at a submarine base up in Bangor, Washington, right? Which is where we keep all of our West Coast nuclear missile submarines, right? Like think Crimson Tide, right? I mean, that was banging space. I've actually been on board that boat, the USS Alabama. And so that is actually it's one of, if not, it's about an hour outside of Seattle. It's either the largest or one of the largest nuclear weapon storage facilities in the world. So whenever these, every submarine that we have, our Ohio class submarines, they have 24 missile tubes, right? And I think now the D5 rockets, last I checked, each missile can carry anywhere from 8 to 12 warheads. And so then those submarines, whenever they come into port, they'd have to offload the missiles off the submarine and then truck them on a flatbed truck about a mile up to what was called the limited area, right? Which is a incredibly secure facility that my job was to guard that facility. And we had guard towers, and it was like 24 different types of alarms.
So
it was
nothing like the border.
Nothing like the border. No. I mean, like if a raccoon went near the fence line, which they often did, we knew about it. I mean, it was extremely secure. It was, even my mom thought it was scary. I said, Mom, it's the safest place in the world.
Well, the reason I bring this up is because if sophisticated maintenance is required to keep these weapons operational, then that implies an infrastructure that doesn't seem likely in the hands of rogue terrorist organizations, underfunded organizations, without some official state backing, either directly or indirectly, which would undermine the argument that there's a Soviet-era nuclear weapon inside the United States that these drones are looking for.
Yeah, and also, I concur. And then the other aspect of that is that people said, oh, well, it was a nuclear weapon, it was pulled out of Ukraine. Now, the thing is after the fall of the Soviet Union, one of the first things that the United States was concerned about was that there were tons of nuclear weapons in Ukraine. And when Ukraine was becoming an independent country, we had to make a deal. And this was back in, 1990, 1991. We made a deal with the Russians and the Ukrainians saying, like, hey, Russia, you take your nukes out. Ukraine will protect you, so to speak, right? And it was like part of a deal. Ukraine was itself, as a country, was in no position then, they sure as hell aren't now, to possess nuclear weapons. That's we don't need that.
Right.
And so all the Russians took all those weapons out and brought them into Russia proper. So that was kind of part of a deal we made, right? And so we actually I was actually surprised the amount of accountability we actually do have. Just because we might not advertise that doesn't mean we don't have it.
Right.
So, and additionally, yes, those warheads if it was just sitting in some bunker for the past 30 years collecting rust, right? And that was part of one of our jobs, was that, hey, maybe some terrorist did get a hold of something, and then we would have to run diagnostics on it. The idea is that, we come in with all these Army Special Forces guys, right? Green Berets. They kill all the bad guys. This is like in the scenario how we play it, right? We secure the weapons, and then my team and my EOD team was 4 of us, go to work. And our job was we had all sorts of really interesting tools and diagnostics where we could, one, determine, okay, is this thing real? Is it a hoax? If it is real, is it functional? And we were able to collect a lot of data, and using communication methods that don't officially exist, we'd be able to transmit that to the smart guys at Los Alamos. And like Los Alamos had this really cool, like Dr. Evil command center that I got to see, where we transmitted to them, and they would look at everything, and they'd probably say something like, no, it's not real. It's a hoax device.
Really cool Dr. Evil command center.
Or they would say something like, and we trained this, right? Where we overseas with partner nations, we conduct an exercise, right? Where, we put a fake nuclear weapon, a mock-up, we'd play that whole game with role players. My team and I would go to work, and then I'm on my little Panasonic Toughbook. I'm setting up a little camera where I'm essentially like on FaceTime or Skype, where I'm looking at the weapon or the item, as we'd say. We're taking x-rays and certain diagnostics. I'm uploading that. That goes to the smart people.
Sure.
And they'll look at it and say, okay, no, it's a hoax device. Or, it looks like they're trying to build something, but it won't detonate. It won't create a nuclear yield. It's still under construction, or it's so damaged that nothing's going to happen.
Hopefully not, salt dumpster.
They might say something like, oh, yeah, you guys are good. Just stay there. No, just keep working.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So back to the drone thing specifically. Probably not trying to detect a nuclear device. We've only got about 2 minutes till the break. I'm going to keep it for the next 30 minutes too after this break. I've done a little bit of government contracting. I worked for a company that was GSA certified at one point in time. It was a company called Energetics Technology Center, and they did research for weapon defense systems and things of that nature as an intern when I was in college. I know that there is a tremendous amount of incentive for government contractors, government departments, agencies to exhaust the rest of their budget at the end of the year in order to justify getting the same budget the next year. Is it possible that Space Force or whatever government entities are operating these drones are trying to run up the bill intentionally before the end of the year so that they can get the same funding in the next round?
I'll say this much: the government runs on a different calendar, right?
Okay.
So the federal government, because I dealt with that exact same thing, but the government fiscal year ends in September, begins in October.
Okay.
So when it came to funding, because I had to deal with that exact same thing, whether it was our unit, whether it was either money or the other thing was like ammunition. Like if we had leftover ammunition it was like in September, we're like, hey boys, let's go to the range.
Yeah.
And we would just shoot everything. It would just wait, like handing us satchels a C4, like go take to the range and blow all it up. Everything.
Sure.
It was really fun.
But since the fiscal year ended in September, that's likely not the case with what's happening with these drones. And I don't mean to cut you off, Tom. It's just that we're coming up on a break in 30 seconds, and this is a good segue. I want to get more into this on the other side and speculation. In the meantime, folks, please follow Tom Sawyer on X at Thomas B. Sauer. Excuse me, I keep calling you Sawyer. Thomas B. Sauer Sauer on X.
Big Sauer.
Make sure you visit the AlexJonesStore.com as well.
Yeah, so their interview keeps going. A lot more good analysis. Link will be in the description if you want to watch the full thing. But this dude's got a lot of inside information, so it might be something you want to check out in full at your earliest convenience. We had this posted in the chat. I think it was Billdozer. Yeah, breaking. New Jersey drones are, quote, federal operations after attending a classified briefing in a secure compartmented information facility, a.k.a. a SCIF. Jim Himes said, quote, these sightings in New Jersey, Connecticut, anywhere they're being sighted are all federal operations. Ooh, interesting. Wasn't it Mayorkas the other day, or who said it's not us? No, it's that DOD spokeswoman lady at the Pentagon. It's not foreign military. It's not our military. Seems like it is federal.
Sightings in New Jersey, Connecticut, anywhere they're being cited are federal government operations, and they are not. We were assured, and we asked this question over and over and over again. They are not federal government operations to sniff radiation, gas, recovery, anything else. Number two, they remain committed to their message that there is zero evidence of laws being broken by any of these drones. And the context here was the fact that when Josh and I live probably equidistant from Midtown Manhattan, the New York metropolitan area is some of the most crowded airspace in the world, with Newark, Teterboro, White Plains, LaGuardia, Newark, JFK. There is a lot of commercial aircraft in the air, general aviation aircraft in the air. There are 800,000 registered drones in this country, and then millions and millions of many unregistered drones. Because if you have a drone that weighs less than about half a pound, that need not be registered. These sightings in New Jersey.
Very interesting. Federal operations. Meanwhile, Ukraine is trying to start World War III even harder, with assassination operation now inside of Russia in Moscow. Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, the commander of the Russian Armed Forces Radiological, Chemical, and Biological Defense Unit, as well as one of his deputies, were both killed in a bombing last night at the entrance to an apartment building in the Ryazansky district of Moscow. Here's Kirillov, and here's some footage of the aftermath. Ukraine is so out of control, man. These people are lunatics. Aftermath, chaos, total lunacy over here. Kirillov was the head of Russia's nuclear, biological, chemical defense forces. Ukraine had just charged him with chemical war crimes within 24 hours of this event. Visegrad 24 saying, breaking, Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov has been killed by a remotely detonated bomb placed near the entrance of a building in Moscow. Kirillov was the head, as we talked about, of the chemical, biological, nuclear defense forces. Insane. Kirillov was responsible for providing Russian forces with the chemical agents for use against entrenched Ukrainian positions. Ukraine claims that Russia had used chemical agents 4,800 times since the war started. Sure. Since 2022, more than 2,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been hospitalized with chemical poisoning, and 3 have died. Quote, Russian forces mostly use ammunition with toxic substances by dropping them from FPV, first-person view, drones on Ukrainian positions. When chemical grenades are detonated, their poisonous compounds affect human mucous membranes. That's not good, especially the eyes and respiratory tract. When detonated, the irritating gases force Ukrainian soldiers finding cover in the trenches to leave and expose themselves to Russian gunfire, the statements noted. Well, maybe you shouldn't have been bombing the Donbass region of ethnic Russians. You basically asked for this. Ukraine handed over soil samples that prove the use of banned materials to independent laboratories of the International Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons for examination and were confirmed to breach international humanitarian law. There's no way, guys, that they could have just contaminated some soil themselves and set up Russia. Ukrainian soldiers say the tactic is effective, allowing Moscow to capture positions occasionally without destroying them. UK issued sanctions against Kirillov and his unit over the use of chemical weapons on the battlefield in Ukraine on October 8th. And I'm not saying this didn't happen, but I don't trust freaking anything coming out of these people. So was it Ukraine? Apparently, yes. Ukraine has taken credit.
Welcome back. We've got some breaking news in the war in Ukraine. Ukraine has taken credit for a bombing inside Moscow that killed a top Russian general. The bomb was hidden in a parked scooter and detonated, killing Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov and his assistant. Kirillov was in charge of Russia's nuclear, biological, and chemical protection forces. Ukraine had just opened a criminal investigation against him on Monday, accusing him of directing the use of banned chemical weapons. Sources say the Ukrainian SBU, its security service, was behind Kirillov's
Exactly,
killing.
Monty. So they're now taking credit for it. Here's a couple seconds of Communist News Network talking about it.
Some newly obtained video shows the moments leading up to a deadly explosion that killed a top Russian general today in Moscow. A source tells us that one of the men you're about to see is in fact Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov. And we can't show you the blast itself because it's too graphic, but here is part of the footage.
Russian officials say the general and his assistant were killed when a remotely detonated bomb planted in an electronic scooter, which you may have noticed standing there next to that door, went off.
Yeah, that's right. Supposedly they had a bomb mounted inside of a scooter, which was sitting on the street outside of the building. Here's a picture of the said scooter in question. We also have some BBC coverage of this saying that of Ukraine saying it was them.
The SBU have sources within Ukraine's security services. The SBU have told the BBC that it was behind a bomb attack in Moscow which killed a senior Russian general in charge of the country's nuclear, chemical and biological defense. Igor Kirillov and his assistant were blown up as they left an apartment building around 6 kilometers southeast of the Kremlin. On Monday, Ukrainian prosecutors charged Lieutenant General Kirillov with using banned chemical weapons. Russian investigators say the bomb was hidden in a scooter and detonated remotely. The SBU source has described Mr. Kirillov as a legitimate target and a war criminal who gave orders to use banned chemical weapons against Ukraine's military. And these here are the live pictures in Moscow outside that apartment block where the general was killed. Our correspondent on the scene, our Russia editor, says that investigators are there trying to understand what happened. And here is Steve Rosenberg with the latest.
Well, this is what we know so far. This is based on what Russian investigators have said. They say that the bomb was hidden in a scooter by the entrance to an apartment block and detonated remotely. They say that Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov was killed along with his assistant. Now, Lieutenant General Kirillov was head of Russia's nuclear, chemical, biological protection forces. So this is a senior figure killed in this attack. Images that have been coming in from the scene show considerable damage to the entrance to that block of flats. A lot of bomb damage, a lot of police and investigators on the scene now looking for clues. And as you mentioned yesterday, Ukraine's security service actually charged the Russian general in absentia
C-Stock, brother,
for allegedly using
I'm having trouble pulling your video up, C-Stock, but I do see it. I'll try to upload it to play it as soon as possible.
Chemical weapons in Ukraine. He was actually sanctioned back in October by the British authorities, who accused Russia of flagrant violation of the Chemical Weapons Convention. But dramatic scenes, certainly in Moscow
I don't
today.
buy it, man.
Typical sort of block of flats, apartment block, and residents completely shocked by what happened this morning. This considerable blast from this bomb that was hidden, as investigators say, in a scooter outside the entrance to this apartment block, which has killed a senior Russian military figure.
Yeah, super suspicious. All this highly suspicious. In my opinion, I don't believe any of it. Not the accusation of chemical weapons, not the scooter situation. Nothing makes sense here. Nothing makes sense here. Interesting. Yeah, Mama Mac, Omega says his chat's all fucked up. Somehow I'm receiving it, but you guys aren't. I don't know. So meanwhile, the U.S. conducts new strikes in Syria and Yemen, still with no congressional authorization. Man, the transition of power cannot happen fast enough. Congress has not authorized war, and yet the United States on Monday bombed two countries, Yemen and Syria. U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, earlier confirmed an airstrike on a military facility of the Houthis in northern Yemen. A Houthi Defense Ministry building in the Yemeni capital of Sana'a was reportedly among those targets, which came under attack by U.S. warplanes. Quote, on December 16th, Yemen time, CENTCOM forces conducted a precision airstrike against a key command and control facility operated by Iran-backed Houthis within Houthi-controlled territory in Sana'a, Yemen, CENTCOM said in a fresh statement. Separately, CENTCOM said Monday that American forces bombed ISIS camps in Syria, killing at least 12 Islamic State fighters. Aren't we supposed to declare war with Congress before we're bombing countries all over the world? The Pentagon said further that the strikes, quote, were conducted as part of the ongoing mission to disrupt, degrade, and defeat ISIS, preventing the terrorist group from conducting external operations and to ensure that ISIS does not seek opportunities to reconstitute in central Syria. So now it appears that the Pentagon is in a renewed fight against both the, quote, Iran axis, unquote, in Yemen and hardline Sunni terrorists at the heart of Syria. Interestingly, the Syria strikes were in areas previously understood as the Russian military's area of responsibility, as well as the now defunct Syrian government of Bashar al-Assad. So we're attacking Russian-controlled areas in Syria. Oh, man, they're really trying to start World War III. The U.S. designated terror organization Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, in its prior iteration, was an al-Qaeda offshoot. So CIA, then, was once an open ally of ISIS, also CIA, and is now in control of Damascus and major Syrian cities. It's the CIA, guys, behind all of this, in my opinion, allegedly. M337. Good to see you. Bad news, though. Damn, news said at least 100,000 dead in Syria. That's fucked up, man. That's fucked up. Monty, the president, is the commander-in-chief. Now, who is ordering this? Not sure. Biden can't pick his dinner, much less know whom to bomb. But he can use force. He cannot declare war, yet spark it. Man, that's fucking crazy, bro. Fucking crazy. Salt dumpster saying we've seen U.S. military vehicles in Damascus taking hard assets and setting up FOBs. Damn, welcome back, Threeper. Good to see you, bro. As Bush kept saying, Mama Mac says, their plan is to, quote, finish the job. These people are indeed criminals. I think so too, Mama Mac. Turkey and Israel have also been involved in bombing Syria, but Israel has focused its literally hundreds of strikes on degrading and destroying leftover Syrian army missiles, planes, equipment, and bunkers. At this moment, the Pentagon also has at least 900 troops occupying the northeast Syrian oil and gas fields, but the Syrian Kurds it supports have increasingly been clashing with Turkish-aligned forces and directly with the Turkish army, which is still mustering forces along the northern Syrian border.
Are the airstrikes in Yemen working? Well, when you say working, are they stopping the Houthis? No. Are they going to continue? Yes.
So they're not working, they're not stopping the Houthis, but they're going to continue. The response was as follows. Antiwar.com's Dave DeCamp approached Biden administration officials to ask about the pesky question of congressional authorization to bomb foreign militants in no less than 2 conflict theaters. The response was as follows, quote, Biden and Harris told me that the U.S. wasn't at war, but today bombed Syria and Yemen, DeCamp wrote on X. So, yay, we're being, dragged into war yet again. Nefarious forces at play, conducting sketchy operations all around the world. How about this? Let's check in with Mike Benz, At Mike Ben Cyber, I saw somebody post in one of his, as in a comment on one of his posts the other day, why don't you get a real fucking job? And Ben's was like, be careful what you wish for, indicating that he may be brought in to the to the Trump administration in one facet or another. Real quick, before we cover this story, let's hop over to C-Stock's video. Apparently, C-Stock took video of drones earlier himself. Let's take a look. Nice guitar work. What do you think they were doing, C-Stock? Look at it. It looks like they're communicating back and forth. Super sketchy, man. Ooh, you think Thomas Massey was brought into Doge, Mama Mac? That's gnarly. If you got a link, feel free to play it. That's all good, C-Stock. We're not monetized on YouTube anyway, so they can't take away any money from playing something like that. Craig Muttley. Perhaps what happened to Biden is one of the Alphabet Brigade keep shoving Everclear grain-soaked tampons into his rear orifice. Could explain his delusional, confused state. That's right. And if you put the alcohol in the rear orifice, it bypasses the liver, contaminating the blood. So double negatives for Joe Biden. Interesting, C-Stock. I wonder what the hell's going on over there. Super, super weird. Yeah, that's right. We got the scoop from C-Stock. So Mike Benz posting the Biden administration paid Reuters over $300 million in government contracts, yet this is supposedly an independent media. We need to protect the independence of the media, says the media, who's being paid $300 million in government contracts. Make that make sense. That right there, fascism. Mussolini's classic definition of fascism, the merger of government and corporations. 11 different Biden government agencies targeted Elon's businesses. All 11 agencies paid millions to Reuters. Reuters then won the Pulitzer Prize for, quote, their work on Elon Musk and his misconduct at his businesses. Insane. In 2024, Reuters staff won the Pulitzer Prize for national reporting for their work on Elon Musk and misconduct at his businesses, including SpaceX, Tesla, and Neuralink. Investigations from the cabinet departments, transportation, justice, labor, interior, agriculture, independent agencies, National Labor Relations Board, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, Environmental Protection Agencies, Securities and Exchange Commission, Federal Communications Commission, Federal Trade Commission. There's no such thing as an independent agency. This notion that there are independent agencies under the jurisdiction of the executive branch is total freaking garbage. So here's the chart showing which organizations were investigating each of these various corporations. It almost seems a little bit corrupt. I can't read exactly what's going on in this one. Monty Tyne in the chat, red as he joins as a channel member. Appreciate you, Monty. Thanks so much for being our newest monthly supporter. That gives you a commissioned officer's rank in the Info Marines, my friend. Semper Fidelis, thanks so much for supporting the show. Appreciate you bigly, brother. Info Marine J Monty 0071. Thanks so much for supporting our show, man. Appreciate you. If you guys are interested in giving a Christmas present to the show, that would be the best way to do it. Sign up as a monthly supporter so that no matter what happens, we'll have people backing us and we can continue pushing forward in the info war. Some more information here with the amounts of monies. You know, moving around from these. This is from usaspending.gov showing who gave the money, where it went. Ridiculous, man. Ridiculous, as the Biden administration is so worried about Trump using the Department of Justice to target political enemies. Well, they're doing the exact thing with a whole bunch of cabinet branches and organizations in the federal government. As like the rank isn't second lieutenant, hell no, to the butter bars, baby. Oh yeah, butter bars. I'm sure you're. Oh man, the butter bars. Yep. Let's see what we got next over here. Oh, speaking of Elon and his companies, he posted this earlier saying, please stop using hashtags. The system doesn't need them anymore, and they look ugly as fuck. I added the as fuck part. But Grok weighs in on using hashtags. Should I use hashtags or not? Kettlebell Dan posted this. Oh, by all means, don't use hashtags on X. They've become about as useful as nipples on a breastplate or a screen door on a submarine, as Grok says. You know, because nothing screams, I'm trying too hard, like a tweet littered with hashtags, each one like a desperate cry into the void of the internet where your content will absolutely not get lost among the other million posts using hashtag blessed or hashtag just girly things. But if you really want to go to watch your engagement plummet like a stone in the abyss, go ahead, fill your posts with hashtags. So for all the hashtag haters out there, good news for you. It's not like X has evolved into a place where the algorithm punishes you for being too eager to be seen. Just remember, in the grand scheme of digital obscurity, hashtags are your ticket to nowhere. Enjoy the silence. So hashtags are over, guys. The great news for everybody. We don't need hashtags on X anymore. The algorithm has evolved to the point where it can see your actual words and you don't need to mark it with a hashtag. So boom. We also have police having arrested just 14 people, arrested 14 people from Aurora, Colorado apartment complex taken over by Tren de Aragua gang. Quote, tortured, unquote, residents found tied up and stabbed. Oh, but none of this is happening. Even people who live in Aurora sending me messages that no, none of this is happening, guys. You're a fucking idiot. Trump was right again. Early Tuesday morning, police arrested 14 people at an Aurora, Colorado apartment complex taken over by the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. According to police, tortured residents were found tied up, stabbed, and pistol whipped. Quote, they were pistol whipped. They were beat. They were mistreated. They were beaten, would be the accurate grammatical, word to use there. Aurora Police Chief Todd Chamberlain said on Tuesday, quote, so does that fall in the category of torture for me? Yeah, it does. If you're being tied up, stabbed, and pistol whipped, yeah, that's definitely being tortured. Quote, this is without question a gang incident. I don't know which gang they're affiliated with yet, Chamberlain said, adding that, quote, there is a high assumption that they may be affiliated with the Tren de Aragua gang. Fox News reported, quote, police in Aurora, Colorado say the overnight armed home invasion was at a local apartment complex that resulted in 14 suspects being detained was without question a gang incident, quote unquote. Just before 2:30 a.m. on Tuesday, police were called to The Edge at Lowry Apartments in the 1200 block of Dallas Street for a reported armed home invasion in which victims were kidnapped and assaulted, the Aurora police said. Aurora Police Department Chief Todd Chamberlain said during a Tuesday news conference that 13 to 15 people, mostly males with some females, entered an apartment where 2 people were inside. Police said the suspects took the migrant victims to another apartment at the same location where the victims were, quote, threatened and bound, unquote. One of the victims, a man, sustained a stab wound but is expected to survive, police said. Both victims are still at the hospital for treatment of their injuries. Trump was right about the Venezuelan gangs taking over apartment complexes.
Okay, Aurora, Colorado now. This is a live look now. The sun is up there in that state, and police have now detained 14 people in reported armed home invasion. That's the same apartment complex where a lot of people were complaining about the armed Venezuelan gang members roaming the halls. Reports indicate that investigators said that several suspects entered the apartment and had 2 people inside. The suspects then reportedly moved the victims to another apartment complex, or rather another unit on the property where police said they were found threatened and bound. An adult man sustained a non-life-threatening stab wound, At the moment, police say it's unclear if the suspects are connected to the Venezuelan game Tren de Aragua, but we'll get a live report in Colorado 30 minutes away and bring you the latest on that developing story.
So there you have it. Trump right again. Gang activity as they home invade and try to take over apartment complexes in Aurora. But don't worry, guys. The same people who think Trump faked his assassination attempt on July 13th say none of this is happening. None of this is happening at all. Fake news media attacked President Trump for bringing up the violent takeover of apartment buildings in Aurora, Colorado by Tren de Aragua gang members. But yeah, it's happening, guys. It's happening. So hopefully
we've got to be
follows
tough
through.
because
Get
if
them
you
the
see
hell out
what's
of there.
happening in Aurora, Colorado today, did you see that? Where Venezuelan gang members have taken over parts of the city. They've taken over apartment houses because these stupid people that we have leading our country are allowing these people, these criminals, to come into our country. And we're going to get them the hell out of here. And this is just the beginning. Wait till you see what happens. Wait till you see what they're doing.
Let's get them out. Meanwhile, showing the spirit of Christmas in Tim Walz' Minnesota, Satanists set up holiday display at the state capitol building. So Russia banning Satanism and Minnesota under Tim Walz embracing it. What? Tim Walz' Minnesota. Satanists set up their first ever, quote, holiday display at the Minnesota Capitol building, saying, "Hail Satan," the Minnesota Satanists said in the celebration of their display. Here's a post from them. "Thanks to all the hard work from our congregation, especially Calcifer, for helping us set up the Minnesota Satanists' first ever holiday display at the state capitol in St. Paul. Hail religious plurality. Hail Satan," they say. Wow. So that's happening apparently in Minnesota. Super, super weird and sketchy. Thanks for sharing that, TV Green. What the fudge? Not one Democrat disavowed the satanic display. They have a religious display right there in the Capitol lobby, it looks like. Ridiculous. What do we got next over here? We also have Justin Trudeau being mercilessly heckled as the government implodes up there. People saying, "You're done." Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was mercilessly heckled on Monday after a Liberal Party fundraiser at the Canadian Museum of History, as his administration teeters on the verge of a collapse. Ruh-roh, quote, "You failed Canada," shouted conservative commentator Right Blend, as Trudeau grinned like an idiot. "You've ruined our country. You're done. Walk away. You don't have an ounce of your father's integrity." His father, who let his wife sleep with Fidel Castro, allegedly? Yeah, that's some great integrity over there. His daddy, the cuck, Trudeau, the bastard of Castro. If I saw somebody post hilariously on X that if Trudeau does step down, it'll be the first row. Hasn't been running government in the Western Hemisphere. Twerky, welcome back, Twerky. Good to see ya. Hail Hydrate picks up drink. Hilarious. Hail Hydra. Oh man, yeah. That Captain America movie was definitely showing a lot of stuff that really happened, in my opinion. But here's the video from Right Blend at Right Blend on X. Then I confronted Justin Trudeau and asked him what gives him the right to continue as Prime Minister of Canada. He's a public figure, not the king, and he's failed. It's time for him to go. It's time for an election, Pierre Poilievre. Also just demanded immediate elections as a result of all this up there.
King Trudeau, what gives you the right to continue? What gives you the right to stay in office? You failed Canada. You've ruined our country. You're done. Walk away. You don't have an ounce of your father's integrity. At least he walked in the snow. You've ruined this country. Everyone around you is running from you. They're abandoning you. Chrystia Freeland, Sean Fraser, they've all left you. It's time for you to go. It's time for Canada to have an election. You're not the king.
Only the king of dipshits.
You're not the king of this country.
Hank
You are not
McGrine.
our king.
Welcome
You are
back.
a public servant and you have failed. King Trudeau, what gives you the...
He didn't fail. He didn't fail. He's doing everything just like the plan dictates. Dude shouting deserves an award. Autism Capital replying, say totally. We felt it. It felt real. The epic heckle comes one day after Trudeau's trusted deputy, finance minister, and Nazi granddaughter, Chrystia Freeland, went scorched earth in a Monday resignation letter that left Trudeau in an even more precarious position. Do they have trebuchets up in Canada? Build one, build one large enough to to launch Trudeau to the moon. Freeland has publicly opposed a plan by Trudeau for short-term spending on voter-pleasing measures such as tax breaks that will worsen the country's deficit. What, the $145 they were going to give away to taxpayers? Our country today faces a challenge, Freeland, 56, wrote in her letter, referring to the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's threat of tariffs. That means keeping our fiscal powder dry so we have the reserves we may need for an upcoming tariff war. How about you just rearrange the trade deals so that they're mutually beneficial? Then we won't need a tariff war. That's the whole point, threatening tariffs to re-establish free and fair trade. Salty Canuck saying $61 billion deficit. No wonder you resigned. Yeah, the finance minister. Fucking idiot. You just screwed Canadians over hard. Pirate style, hard. Arr. How do you look at your kids and the people in your riding in their faces? The people in your riding in their faces when you tell them they will never own a home. Yeah. Screw all these people. Screw all these people. In other news, over on Getter, Charlie Kirk posting in a huge win for Argentina's populist leader Javier Milei. The country has already beaten the recession triggered by his cuts to government spending. Argentina's Milei is like Darth Vader down there, if Darth Vader was good. Crushing the Keynesians. You are beaten. It is useless to resist. And they're now growing at a dramatic 3.9% pace. The country's stock market, meanwhile, is up 174% this year. Monthly inflation has dropped from 25% to less than 3%. First El Salvador, now Argentina. Brave right-wing leaders are doing the stuff elite progressives say you, quote, can't do, and are immediately and dramatically improving their countries. That's right. Next up, America, baby. We're going to begin a modern-day renaissance. A renaissance. Unleashing the amazing, magnanimous power of the American economy. And we're going to eclipse the economic growth of these countries, in my prediction. As long as we're able to succeed, the biggest key to all this is going to be Doge, in my opinion. So we are extremely lucky to have such a stellar group of minds over there that are going to be working on cutting spending and getting rid of regulations and stuff. It's going to be freaking amazing if we can just get to January 20th without World War III. In other news, we got some good news over here, as Lizard Cheney has been referred for a criminal investigation for witness tampering related to the J6 star witness Cassidy Hutchinson. Wasn't she the one that claimed that Trump was climbing over, trying to grab the wheel in the beast to drive over to the Capitol? Just making shit up, allegedly. The Committee on House Administration's Subcommittee on Oversight Chairman Barry Loudermilk, Republican from Georgia, released a second report on the events surrounding January 6, as well as his investigation into the weaponized January 6 committee on Tuesday. Quote, this interim report reveals that there was not just one single cause for what happened at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, but it was a series of intelligence, security, and leadership failures at several levels and numerous entities. Come on, Loudermilk. There were no failures. This was all according to the plan. They executed their plan perfectly. It was not a failure. Yeah, Craig, trebuchet is the new illegal deportation device. We'll strap you in a bubble like the Bubble Boy and launch you across the border so you can bounce to safety back in your home country. Maybe we can put them up in SpaceX devices and do orbital drops. Orbital drops in bubbles, launching you back to your home countries. Sign me up. I would actually probably do the orbital drop in a big bubble. That'd be kind of fun. Anyway, Laddermilk's report outlined criminal recommendations against January 6 committee co-chair Lizard Cheney for witness tampering based on her communication with the January 6, quote, star witness liar, allegedly Cassidy Hutchinson. The committee's top findings. 1. Former Representative Lizard Cheney colluded with, quote, star witness Cassidy Hutchinson without Hutchinson's attorney's knowledge. 2. Former Representative Lizard Cheney should be investigated for potential criminal witness tampering based on the new information about her communication. 3. Cassidy Hutchinson's most outrageous claims lacked any evidence, just like all of the outrageous claims. Trump wants Hitler-style generals. No evidence. No evidence for any of this garbage. Russia, Russia, Russia. No evidence. And the select committee had knowledge that her claims were false when they publicly promoted her. Imagine my shock. President Trump did not attack his Secret Service detail at any time on January 6th. President Trump did not have intelligence indicating violence on the morning of January 6th. Cassidy Hutchinson falsely claimed to have drafted a handwritten note for President Trump on January 6th. Representative Cheney and Cassidy Hutchinson baselessly attempted to disbar Hutchinson's former attorney. 4. Former Representative Lizard Cheney used the January 6th committee, the unselect committee, as a tool to attack President Trump at the cost of investigative integrity and Capitol security. 5. The January 6th unselect committee was improperly constituted and lacked authority. Finally, somebody acknowledging it. We've been saying that forever. Salt dumpster, saying kick them into volcanoes. They're free and already hungry. It's the green thing to do. That's right. Volcanoes are our suggested form of capital punishment here at Common Censored. For climate hoax perpetrators trying to shut down American industry and energy production. Launch them into volcanoes, baby! For a little bit of irony, considering a single volcanic eruption releases more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere than the entire industrial revolution up to modern day human intervention. But maybe we should change that. I think we need to just start boiling oil. Just burning it into the atmosphere to replenish the atmosphere as it constantly off-gasses into outer space. That's right, TV Green. The January 6th committee was not an official proceeding. It was not. Number 6. The January 6th Unselect Committee neglected or withheld evidence from its final report and deleted voluminous records it should have preserved. Federal crimes, felonies, Brady violations. 6. The Department of Defense scapegoated the Washington, D.C. National Guard to distract blame from senior leadership. Almost like how they changed the definition of inflation to detract from what inflation is and who's causing it, printing money, and the expansion of the monetary base, the bankers. Changing the definition to the result, the increase in prices, which is not inflation. That's the result of inflation. So they're same thing here, scapegoating the D.C. National Guard. Oh, they failed. It wasn't us at the top who prevented the troops from being there and everything. As previously reported, Laddermilk obtained January 6, quote, star witness, unquote, Cassidy Hutchinson's signal messages, which revealed she was directly communicating with January 6 Vice Chair Lizard Cheney in 2022. Cheney was communicating with Hutchinson without Hutchinson's attorney's knowledge, knowing this is unethical. What a surprise. I mean, imagine my shock, because we all know that the lizard is, in fact...
It's pure evil!
That's right. It's pure evil. The lizard is what?
100% evil.
Pure evil. Quote, in the months prior to Hutchinson's explosive private and public testimony, Cheney communicated with Hutchinson both directly and through an intermediary. Alyssa Farah Griffin, the spews horrendous rhino, who's actually been speaking some sense lately since Trump won, hilariously, causing whoopee cushion and Joyless Behar over there to melt down repeatedly, hilariously, while Hutchinson was represented by her attorney Stefan Passantino. The Unselect Committee conducted 6 transcribed interviews of Hutchinson in total. Passantino represented Hutchinson for the first of 3 interviews. Oversight Committee said Cheney began communicating with Hutchinson in April 22nd. We have some screenshots over here from Jack Posobiec at Jack Posobiec. Here are Lizard Cheney's text messages with Cassidy Hutchinson. They show multiple calls between Cheney and Hutchinson without lawyers present. In fact, Hutchinson was sharing her lawyer's private text messages with Cheney. Believe it, we have it. Hi, this is Cassidy Hutchinson. I'm sorry for reaching out this way, but I was hoping to have a private conversation with you soon if you're willing. I'd be happy to. Let me know what time works for you. I'm free all day for a call or in person, whichever you prefer. I really appreciate this. Then we see a missed call from the Lizard. Good. Give me a call when it's good for you. Is now okay? Can we aim for 1? That works. I'm sorry I missed you. Please call when you have a moment. I'm worried to initiate the call in case you're tied up with something. And there we have her sending screenshots of her conversation with her own lawyer. Over here, you can see Stefan Passantino. And here she is sending a screenshot to the Lizard, which is kind of weird. Kind of weird, to say the least. Oh, sorry, I thought I had shared this. Here it is, the zoom up. Stefan Passantino. And she's sharing screenshots of her lawyer her lawyer conversations. So weird, yeah, like a Muppet kind of for Hutchinson and Cobra Commander for Lizard Cheney. Sounds about right, I guess. So super weird, super sketchy. Hutchinson reached out to Alyssa Farah Griffin following Hutchinson's second transcribed interview. Farah Griffin and Hutchinson knew each other from their time working together in the White House. Farah Griffin was one of the first former Trump administration officials to publicly criticize Trump in January 2021 and was publicly working with the Unselect Committee on its investigation. GOP committee said, I wonder how much she got paid, allegedly. When Hutchinson reached out to Farah Griffin, she invited Hutchinson over to her Georgetown townhome to talk on April 26, 2022. That evening, Hutchinson told Farah Griffin she had more information she could provide to the Select Committee, according to statements by both Hutchinson and Farah Griffin. During their conversation, Farah Griffin agreed to, quote, contact Lizard Cheney on Hutchinson's behalf about scheduling another interview. Hutchinson's new testimony would include her never-before-heard story that alleged President Trump agreed with rioters chanting, quote, hang Mike Pence, just making shit up as they go, according to text messages that appear to be from the encrypted messaging app Signal. Between Hutchinson and Farah Griffin obtained by the subcommittee, Cheney agreed to communicate with Hutchinson through Farah Griffin. However, it appears that Cheney knew communicating with Hutchinson while Hutchinson was represented by an attorney and a subject of the Select Committee's investigation without going through Hutchinson's attorney would be unethical. This is evident by Farah Griffin's text to Hutchinson that Cheney's, quote, one consign was so long as you have counsel, she can't really ethically talk to you without him. So we could see the communications here. Alyssa Farah Griffin. Which one is which? Oh, so this is Alyssa talking with Hutchinson. Hutchinson in blue, Alyssa Farah Griffin in gray. I know you're busy, but is there a chance you've touched base with anyone re what we talked about Tuesday night? Hey, yes. So I reached out to Liz. She agreed to keep our conversation totally confidential. She said she admires you and could tell that you really wanted to do the right thing from your testimony. Her one concern was so long as you have counsel, she can't really ethically talk to you without him. But what she suggests is a follow-up with your lawyer, that she and Dan George can lead, probably can do without other members and Tim. Does that help at all? I can tell she really wants to work with you and is just trying to figure out the right way to do it. And then she did it behind the lawyer's back in secret. Insane. I mean, do you think this is actually of interest to her at this point, or is it moot? Like, have they moved beyond it? Oh, it's very much of interest. She basically just wants to structure it in a way you are comfortable and wants to make sure it's clear if you speak with them again, it's asking not you, so you don't get in trouble. After her third transcribed interview with Hutchinson reached out after her third transcribed interview, Gateway pundit, Hutchinson reached out to Cheney directly. As we saw in Posobic's post, Lizard Cheney coached Cassidy Hutchinson and suborned perjury. Quote, Cheney had an ethical responsibility to only communicate with Hutchinson with her attorney present. However, Hutchinson's sensational testimony was essential to the Unselect Committee's inquisition of President Trump. Thus, Cheney apparently defied her ethical responsibilities and communicated directly with Hutchinson behind Passantino's back, encouraged her to fire Passantino, and even assisted Hutchinson in obtaining new representation. House Oversight said, holy balls, man. So can Cheney be disbarred over this? Will she be arrested? Will she be charged with perjury and ethical violations? Hope so. A bar complaint was filed against Lizard Cheney in October for secretly communicating with J6 star witness Cassidy Hutchinson while she was being represented by attorney Stephan Passantino. Gateway Pundit compiled a list. Cassidy Hutchinson's 9 confirmed lies from her debunked congressional testimony. If you're interested, link right here. Hyperlinked. Sorry, Omega, that your chat's busted over there. That blows, man. I don't know what's going on. Growing pains over at Rumble. I think we just kind of have to deal with it for a little while. Let's see what we got next on the list. Yahtzee! This could be huge, important information posted by Ashton Forbes over here at JustXAshton. Yahtzee, he says, new podcast dropped December 12th with Hal Puthoff and other people from NASA and the Department of Energy. They're talking about cold fusion, high-frequency gravitational wave production, zero-point energy extraction, modifying space-time, etc. Hal even refutes the people who claim we can't understand this, quote, exotic, unquote, technology. Humans can understand the physics. We are going to get full disclosure in our lives, he says. LFG. We were just talking about that yesterday with the clip of the guy, Mark Andreessen, the billionaire tech genius who was on Joe Rogan last week, talking about how he's in this meeting with the feds, and they said they completely classified and shut down entire branches of physics research. What do you know? They just happen to be most likely about cold fusion, anti-gravity production, and zero-point energy, just like we were talking about yesterday. Yeah, exactly, Threeper. 0-point Teslas, baby. We need that 0-point. We get the 0-point, man, which should be unveiled in the near future. It really should be, especially if Dr. Greer's whistleblowers from the black sites come out and expose all this stuff in the near future. It will completely change human civilization. We won't need gas. The only thing we'll need gas for is burning it to replenish the atmosphere. This is freaking bananas. So he in the replies, he says, listen for yourselves. I'll digest it after I've heard the entire thing. Sal Payus's Navy patents are based on this science, and we saw the video of how they snatch patents. Multiple occasions we saw Kamala saying, we'll snatch the patents. You just got to have the balls to do it. And then we also saw that documentary from Dr. Stephen Greer, The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. That's right, Threeper. Not a new discovery. It's a rediscovery. I definitely believe that. I think that the Atlanteans had all this stuff way back in the day. If you read the ancient Indian stuff, like the Mahabharata and other things, they talk about anti-gravity flying cities and ships called Vimanas that had cloaking technology and what it seems to be nuclear weapons. Go to Mohenjo-Daro over in like Iraq area. It's this ancient leveled city where all the stone is vitrified and melted. And it, as far as I'm aware, it still gives off radioactivity, indicating that it may have been an ancient nuclear event. There's also areas in the Israeli desert where big sections of the desert are just green glass, as if ancient nukes were tested out there or something like that. Who knows? Let's see if we can listen to a couple minutes of this podcast over here. See if I can get it working. Yeah, it seems like it's working.
Hello and welcome again to Ecosystemic Futures podcast, presented by NASA Convergent Aeronautics Solutions Project in collaboration with SocialWorks, a global firm that helps organizations and nations navigate ecosystemic transformation.
Wow, hardcore. This is the Ecosystemic Futures podcast, season 6, Aerovergence, cross-cutting concepts shaping ecosystemic futures beyond conventional physics. Extended electrodynamics, lattice confinement fusion, zero-point energy, and advanced propulsion. Join an extraordinary panel of experts in aerospace, energy, and ultra-advanced technologies as they explore the absolute outer bounds of physics and engineering. This groundbreaking discussion, co-hosted by Anna Brady Estevez, Dr. Hal Puthoff, Larry Forsley, and Diane Finkhausen, convenes the world's leading researchers and innovators to examine extended electrodynamics, lattice confinement fusion, zero-point energy, and advanced propulsion, and discusses the implications for the future of technology and space exploration. Featured guests include Dr. Hal Puthoff, Earth Tech International, Larry Forsley from Global Energy Corporation, Philip Lentz from Unspace. Ooh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. If you think about space-time, from what I understand, there's like a few different types of space. There's space-time, which is like a grid of X and Y, and it curves into like a circle, basically. And inside the circle, you have hyperspace, and outside the sphere. Inside the sphere, you have hyperspace, and outside of the sphere, you have unspace. So a wormhole can connect one section of the grid, kind of like the latitude and longitude on the Earth, through hyperspace to another section in the sphere by creating an Einstein-Rosen bridge, aka wormhole, and you can supposedly suck out unlimited energy from hyperspace, called zero-point energy. There's also Richard Bandurek, Field Propulsion Technologies, Anchor Bot, Hover Inc., Louis DiChiaro from Richard Stockton College, Chance Glenn from Morningbird Space, MK Merrigan from MK Advisors, Rima Quaid from the U.S. Department of Energy. Key themes discussed include extended electrodynamics, EDI, and its applications, zero-point energy research and potential applications for unlimited power. Unlimited power! Like Chancellor Palpatine or Darth Sidious. Nerd! Advanced propulsion systems and breakthrough propulsion physics, quantum detection and sensing technologies, the intersection of gravitational physics and electrodynamics. That's a really cool one. Novel approaches to fusion and energy generation, materials, science, and programmable matter. The convergence of theoretical physics and practical engineering. The episode highlights the growing convergence of theoretical physics and practical engineering, suggesting we may be on the cusp of revolutionary advances in propulsion, energy, and communication technologies. The discussion emphasizes the importance of continued research, increased funding, and broader collaboration across disciplines to accelerate development in these crucial areas. Let's take a listen for a few minutes, because this sounds like it's going to be freaking awesome. And what do you know? All the things that I've been saying to the T are being brought out here by people, high ups in these various fields.
As our world is increasingly digital and interconnected, ecosystemic models are reshaping society, industry, economy, and policy, and reframing how we build for resilient futures. Ecosystemic Futures investigates this expansive and hyper-connected paradigm and explores frameworks to help us achieve more beneficial futures.
This is extremely exciting.
I'm Diane Finkhausen, CEO of SocialWorks, and I'm honored to introduce a very special session today. We're joined by a panel of leading global experts in aerospace, energy, and advanced technologies to explore disruptive technologies and extended electrodynamics, including...
Monty says, fuck cancer. All I can say right now, just lost a friend. This hit hard. Monty, So sorry to hear that, my friend. Sending strength and positivity from Connecticut your direction, brother. Oh, man. Got any other friends with cancer or anything like that? Anybody out there? Have them look into fenbendazole. That one dude we watched the report about had stage 4 pancreatic cancer that just was littering his whole body after having expanded through the lymph node system and everything like that. Go ahead, brother. Monty, we'll be thinking about you, pal. So sorry to hear that, my friend. Condolences and big love from CT, man. Alpha Boss also had lost a friend. Oh, man. Sorry, guys. Fenbendazole, ivermectin, nattokinase, bromelain, curcumin, alkalinizing the blood with baking soda, as we'll talk about shortly as well. So sorry, Monty. Wishing you and your circle the best down there. Same with you, Alpha Boss, brother.
Energy, propulsion, communication, and bio. And we're joined here today by some of the world's leading experts in these domains. First and foremost, I'd love to hand it over to my co-host, Anna Brady Estevez.
I don't like necessarily tooting my own horn all the time. But I mean, I'm just a little lowly dude over here at Castle Sterling on the Sound. And I've been telling you guys this stuff for over a year at this point. And now the experts are coming out to reveal all this stuff.
Anna, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hey, everybody. I'm Anna Brady Estevez, and I'm active in funding innovators. And that's something that I've done in the private sector, also at the National Science Foundation, while leading the space technology, energy, digital assets, and other national portfolios. And also, I'm over at SBA as an investment officer, senior investment advisor, and partner over at SBA in their venture capital programs, and co-chair the Space Economy Interagency. So I've had the opportunity to really get to know people through the range of these roles and work with them and a number of tremendous colleagues, really from across the interagency that are highly interested in these areas.
Amazing. Thank you, Anna. And we're excited to welcome a number of your collaborators here this morning. Would you mind just walking through some of the introductions and kicking off the conversation for the day?
Thank you. Yes, I think we're going to have a number of amazing colleagues join over the day. So I'm going to introduce them kind of in different segments because I want to make sure that we get everybody. But starting out, as we talk about this field, I'd like to introduce the co-host, Larry Forsley, who's with NASA and also Global Energy Corporation, and then introduce Hal Puthoff and also Lou DeShera. Larry, would you share your introduction?
Sure. I'm Larry Forsley. I'm Chief Technology Officer for Global Energy Corporation in Virginia. And I've been working for the last decade or more with NASA Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio, where we've been working on a variety of advanced fusion and fast fission technologies for deep space.
Ooh. Thank you, Larry. And
Nerd boner.
Hal, I mean, you've been active. We're going to be covering a broad range of technologies today, and certainly you've been active across many of them as one of the leaders, if not the leader in the field in some of these areas.
I'm Hal Puthoff. I'm CEO of EarthTech International. We pursue advanced ideas and laboratory developments in energy, propulsion, communications, primarily targeted towards spaceflight applications. So it ranges all the way from quantum systems for communication to evaluating potential general relativity models for advanced propulsion for P phenomena in collaboration with a number of government institutes.
Evaluating general relativity models, Ashton says general relativity is dead. That the unification theory, I think probably Malcolm Bendalls ties all this stuff together. And in ways that general relativity does not account for quantum stuff and all this kind of crazy things. So general relativity may be a thing of the past in the near future.
Sal, it's great to see you today. And so just want to note that in this field of extended electrodynamics, quantum phenomena, energy, as Hal mentioned, also UAPs, because there's an expected tie there, just that Hal's been very active in building out the theory and the work, how this phenomena behaves, how to utilize it. Larry's been increasingly active in this area. And then Lou DiCero, who's also on the line, is one of the other leaders who's been highly active in this space on the theoretical build out. Lou.
Yes, hello everybody. I'm Lou DiCero. I'm currently employed by the Naval Surface Warfare Center at Indian Head as one of the staff scientists. And we've been doing a lot of work with low energy nuclear reactions research. I'm also very interested in extended electrodynamics, and in particular in what we would call the coupled Maxwell Heaviside equations, which apparently, according to some of our Russian theorists, may establish a link between electrodynamics, spin fields, and gravity,
That's
offering
key.
some
That's
very
key.
interesting possibilities.
Telling you.
We'd like very much to have an opportunity to get into those.
Can use electricity to create and manipulate gravity fields, baby.
And perhaps use them to describe quantitatively how some advanced propulsion systems could operate. Over.
Sure. And each of you is really active in building things. And then I know that we don't have Lee Hively on the line today, someone else who's also very active building out the understanding, one of the leaders in this field. But I know several of you are also in very close contact with Lee Hively. So and then as we go forth in the call, we have a number of entrepreneurs who are actually building out, as many of you are, applications in this field. So Larry, we've known each other for many years on the disruptive technologies side, and you had come to me and to others who I know very well, probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, on the field of EED, as we call it. So instead of saying extended electrodynamics, we'll call it EED, probably from this point forward. But walk me through. So I was in those early meetings, and then we really broadened out this group to increase the participation. But what would you share with people, like in terms of those early meetings that you were pulling together on EED?
Yeah, thank you. The meetings grew out of another set of meetings that have been held, including Lou DiCero and Lee Hively, mostly addressing how do we go about communicating?
Tech
through
show. Good to
dense
see
media,
ya.
water, things that we can't propagate radio waves through. And we wrestled with this. We wrestled with various people who were trying to develop antennas and to both transmit and receive. As we got deeper into this, we found out that a number of pieces of what we thought were well-known electromagnetic equations, maybe we're missing some pieces. And some of those pieces...
Maybe things that were suppressed by the government after World War II?
been noticed as early as the 1920s, but they came to the fore in the mid-50s and then proven in the 1970s. The idea that everything is a field. What we were beginning to wrestle with, which Hal has done a great deal of work in, is instead of the fields, an electromagnetic field like light, you have what's called a potential, and there is no field. So this is where we are now in the EED section. The second part that Lou addressed is the possibility that electromagnetics and extended electromagnetics extends into general relativity. Russian colleagues that Lou has been looking at in depth have purportedly used this to move objects at distances. And this all kind of comes together when you look at what is it that drives UAPs, both in terms of condensed, very compact energy sources, and what provides them with the mechanism by which they can move around. I think Hal was what it pointed out in a question and answer earlier on another podcast. It's not that the science that they may be employing goes beyond ours. It just goes beyond our current engineering.
What's that? I'm a Fed, you say?
Shouldn't we at least consider the possibility that Duncan is a spy?
No, Duncan is not a spy. Sterling is not a spy. So if you want more information about the unification theory, we'll stop listening here. You guys get the gist. It's going to be some dense, technical type stuff. Link will be in the description after the show if you want to check it out. over the next, whenever time period you want to check it out. But here's this topic of the unification theory by Malcolm Bendall, the creator of the thunderstorm generator. After his work was outed to the public on the Joe Rogan Show by Randall Carlson in 2022, we played the clip before. Australian inventor, geochemist, and, quote, prophet of nature, Malcolm Bendall has released years of research and documentation containing the heart of the mathematical theory and physical processes behind his molten sea arc atomic reconstruction technology, MSAART. This paperback edition includes the original redacted 20-part draft notes, unedited. The draft notes include diagrams of his inventions, descriptions of their potential applications, initial test results, and analysis of the thunderstorm generator, the theory of his planetary octaves sequences and model of the elements, research into ancient history, and his work on sacred geometry, Sanskrit, mathematics, and much more. Malcolm's plasmoid unification model of physics is built on the shoulders of giants, including Nikola Tesla, Walter Russell, Kenneth Radford Shoulders, speaking of the shoulders of giants, Martin Fleischmann, J. Robert Oppenheimer, Randall Carlson, and many other great scientists. In his notes, Malcolm identifies and works with the fundamental laws of our universe through the simple observation and replication of the form and function of natural processes, such as the thunderstorm. So you guys have heard me talking about this before, that I sort of, when I was studying chemistry and stuff, had a vision that the proper layout of the periodic table of the elements should be a spiral. And then I discovered that that's exactly what Walter Russell came to the conclusion of as well. And then Malcolm Bendall took Walter Russell's stuff and incorporated wavelengths of light into it. And all kinds of, basically everything all connected in one periodic table that ties it all together, the elements, the frequencies, everything. So I'm looking at picking up a copy of this. There's also a lot of really great channels that talk about it, though. One in particular, Alchemical Science on YouTube and Rumble over here. This dude is an acolyte of Malcolm Bendall and has all kinds of stuff breaking down plasmoid unification theory and lots of really, really cool stuff on this channel, man. It's freaking nuts. So check this out if you get a chance. Plasmoid unification and the music of the spheres. The sounds coming from the different planets. Symphony X, my favorite band, references the music of the spheres as an ancient Greek concept, I believe. Just really cool. Sacred geometry, all this stuff. It's all connected. Cymatics, wavelengths. It's all wavelengths is basically what it all comes down to. So I'll add a link for this in the show notes as well. Alchemical Science on YouTube. On Rumble, sorry. Old habits die hard. He used to sing YouTube, but gotta get past that. All right, I'm going to add this one as well. The Plasmoid Unification book from Malcolm Bendall. And then there was a good link that Wiley sent in chat in regards to cancer treatment, covering the Joe Tippins protocol. Let's check this one out. Thanks for sharing, Wiley. Whoa. Zoom on one screen and all my other screens start.
Research that once you have I'd already done my own research, that once you have wide metastasis small cell lung cancer, you're literally a goner.
You got it, Alpha Boss.
The 0% chance of
That's the key to everything. Metatron's cube, Archangel Metatron.
survival and 3 to 6 month life expectancy, and I was basically told to go home and get my affairs in order and hospice.
Wow.
And the next day, I got a call from a large animal veterinarian in western Oklahoma, who's a college friend and family friend, and he told me this crazy story about a scientist at Merck on the veterinary side who has been doing cancer research on mice, and she had hundreds of mice that she'd implanted cancers in all their body parts, brain, stomach, liver, pancreas, etc. And her mouse population came down with intestinal parasites. And so she had no choice but to save her research. She gave all of her mice fenbendazole. If you went out to any zoo in the world, they bring in fenbendazole by the truckload, front-end loader, head-high piles in bays, because they give that drug to every single animal in the animal kingdom.
And one of the oldest and safest drugs around, right?
Yes, been around for 40 years. And
there's that theory that cancer is a result of tiny little microscopic parasites. And so if ivermectin or fenbendazole in this case kills parasites, it could possibly miter cancer as well.
So she did, and unfortunately, or fortunately for all of us, she also learned that she accidentally killed all the cancer.
Well, that was a surprise, right?
Yeah, it's a serendipitous surprise, right?
Serendipitous. What happens when you, let me read that for you guys. What happens when you don't deworm for years? Intestinal worms are parasites that can live inside us without obvious signs, stealthily undermining our health. Unchecked, they can lead to complications from bowel obstruction to loss of appetite, loss of weight, anemia, lung infection, and liver congestion. Fenbendazole. This is deworming protocol. Fenbendazole 222 milligrams per day, 7 days a week with food. Curcumin 600 milligram, 2 pills a day of bioavailable curcumin, 7 days a week. CBD oil 25 mgs sublingually under the tongue, 7 days a week. Vitamin E optional 400 to 800 milligrams per day, 7 days a week. I was doing a little bit of research on NMN yesterday too, which is an anti-aging and compound that also produces brain stimulation, like a what do they call those things? Things that improve cognitive capacity. I'm drawing a blank right now, but let's continue. Fenbendazole, Joe Tippins. Okay, so you guys can read through all this if you want. Link will be in the description. I've already added it for you guys. He's got the whole protocol over here. Thanks for sharing, Wiley. Appreciate that. Definitely want to stop cancer dead in its tracks, just like the global communist takeover. Speaking about takeovers, take a look at this lunatic over here. Liberal veteran claims Trump will be arrested December 20th under Executive Order 13848. Calls for mob to storm D.C. on Inauguration Day and demand Trump step down if arrest doesn't happen. Oh, man. For years, conservatives have been vilified as, quote, conspiracy theorists for claiming that the 2020 election was rigged and stolen from President Trump. The mainstream media and liberal pundits mocked anyone who questioned the outcome, dismissing them as dangerous extremists or delusional crackpots. Now the tide has turned, and the hypocrisy is glaringly obvious as liberals peddle their own wild predictions. Enter U.S. Air Force veteran and vocal leftist Jerry Duran, who has taken to social media to allege that President Trump will be arrested on December 20th under Executive Order 13848. Duran, a nurse and substitute teacher, went further, urging a mass storming of Washington, D.C. on Inauguration Day if his so-called prophecy doesn't come to pass. Suddenly, calls for public demonstrations, which liberals once decried as insurrections, are acceptable when they serve their narrative. According to Duran's unhinged social media rant, Executive Order 13848, signed by Trump in 2018, will be weaponized to arrest the 45th president for conspiring with foreign actors to rig the election. He passionately encouraged leftists to prepare for mass mobilization if the arrest doesn't happen by January 20th, the next Inauguration Day. Let's check out this video.
I want to just leave this short. It's 4 minutes. We'll do this before 5. Guys, don't forget. It's we the people, okay? We have executive order coming out, 13848, right? It's going to be implemented. It's been out. Donald Trump helped create it. And it's going to come back to bite him in the ass because what it does is it says how we have to proceed when we realize that there has been outside interference in our elections.
That's right, Threeper, commander of the Info Air Force.
They're going to reveal that on the 20th of December, because 45 days from November 6th brings us to December 20th, which is 6 days from today. So this coming Friday. So have a great weekend. Do your laundry. Hang your stuff out if you can.
Blah, fucking blah. He goes on to say that, the 3% rule states that if 3% of the group's population gathers in mass, they can change everything. So he's saying that, we have 330 million Americans. 10% of that is 33 million. And what's a third of that? 11 million. So if 11 million people show up in Washington, Trump will step down, guys. He'll see 11 million people, and he'll have a coronary and step down. That's not how the 3% rule works, bro. 3% knows. It's when 3% step up and physically fight. It only takes 3% of a population, at least of the U.S. population in the Revolutionary War, to overthrow the British imperialism. It doesn't take 3% just gathering without weapons near the Washington Monument to change it magically. He's talking about the 3% means 3% of people with guns. Fuckwit. Not just a peaceful protest with 11 million people. Oh, and Trump will be so scared he'll step down. So you guys get the gist. We don't need to watch any more of this freaking moron. But the link will be in the description if you want to torture yourself and watch the whole video. Meanwhile, Trump is asking Creepy Sleepy Joe to stop selling the border wall. What is wrong with these people, man? Not Trump. Joe Biden, look at this.
Administration is trying to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar, knowing that we're getting ready to put it up. And what they're doing is really an act. It's almost a criminal act. They know we're going to use it.
Almost.
And if we don't have it, we're going to have to rebuild it. And it'll cost double what it cost years ago. And that's hundreds of millions of dollars, because you're talking about a lot of wall. I built much more than I said I was going to build. But then after it was built, I said, we can do some more, because it's sort of like water, people flow through. And that will pretty much really take care of it. And what happened...
Like water, people flow through. Those illegals are really taking Bruce Lee's advice to heart. Be water. Water can crash, it can flow, it can mold to take the shape of anything. Be water. So they're listening to Bruce Lee and sneaking on through the border wall cracks.
Is they just, as you see, they're trying to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar. And that's really... that has nothing to do with a smooth transition. That has to do with people really trying to stop our nation. And all it means really is that we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars more, not even talking about the time. Time would be pretty long, but we'll spend hundreds of millions of dollars more on building the same wall that we already have. And people have already come back to us that have deals at 5 cents and 4 cents, and one guy at 3 cents on the dollar, and they offered to sell it back to us at more money than it cost us to build substantially. Can you believe it? So they make a deal with the United States to buy it for pennies, and then they call us and they say, do you want to buy it back?
For real, Alpha
We'll
Boss.
sell it back to you for hundreds of dollars a foot. Hundreds of dollars, from pennies to hundreds of dollars a foot. And we can't let this take place. Now, we're going to go. I spoke with the Attorney General of Texas. I spoke to the senators of Texas. I spoke to a lot of people, and hopefully they'll be able to stop. We're going to be, having a restraining order. But just think about how ridiculous it is. And this is just people that don't want this country to succeed. And this has nothing to do with Democrat or Republican. This has to do with common sense. We won on common sense, and this is maybe one of the most egregious examples I've seen. So the people that are buying it or trying to buy it are trying to make a deal with us to sell it back at hundreds of times more than we paid. And this is all because the Democrats. So I'm asking today Joe Biden to please stop selling the wall. We're going to use that to create a strong barrier and it worked. That's why our numbers were so good. It really worked, and it worked well. And it's very expensive to do. And I'm asking Joe Biden to stop his people from giving it away. It's something that people can't even believe is happening. So hopefully Joe will be able to stop it. We'll soon unleash American energy, and this will be done at levels not seen.
Total sabotage. Just like Tom Sauer said in the last hour. They're doing everything they can to undermine the Trump administration because they don't want to see Trump succeed.
Yep, that pretty much sums it up. Let's go ahead and terminate the YouTube feed. Well, it's on my mind because we're about to get into some medical stuff over here in a moment. Boom. Link for the Rumble broadcast now posted in the YouTube chat. Wood Geek, what's up, bro? Good to see you. Welcome back. So if you're watching on YouTube, come join us over on Rumble, where the water is warm and we can speak freely. Oh, look who's showing up late. Ed, what's up, Ed? Love you, buddy. Thanks for joining me yesterday. So yeah, come hang out with us on Rumble. If you can't make it, sorry to have to ditch you. We'll be back tomorrow for a Hump Day edition of Common Censored. That's right, Mama Mac. Come Rumble with us. If not, we'll catch you on the flip side. Until then, let's get ready to rumble.